You know, politicians and their cheerleaders seem to have a one-track mind. I tell you, there's a lot of people talking about terrorism.
Terror.
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 War on terrorism. War against terrorism.
Global war on terror.
Global terrorism. 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 Global terrorism.
Terrorism. Terrorism.
Terrorism.
Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. The evil terrorists. 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 Terrorists.
Terrorist. 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 Terrorist.
Terrorist. Terrorist.
Terrorist. Terrorist.
Terrorists. Terrorists.
All right, Rudy, I think we get the point. Enough already. What I want to do now is introduce you to Brian Jenkins. He's an expert on terrorism. Brian Jenkins currently serves as Senior Advisor to the President of the RAND Corporation. He's also served as member of the White House Commission on Aviation Safety and Security, an advisor to the National Commission on Terrorism, and he serves as an advisor to the U.S. Department of State, Department of Defense, and Department of Energy, and other government agencies. He defines terrorism as the use or threatened use of force designed to bring about political change. Take notice, there's nothing in there about where you're born or what uniform you happen to wear. So the thought occurred to me, does this apply to the United States government? You know, the American military invasion and occupation of Iraq. I mean, stands to reason if that's what terrorism is the use of force to bring about political change. Doesn't seem any reason why the United States government should somehow be excluded. Remember what the U.S. government told us. They said Saddam Hussein right there, was bad guy. He's shaking hands with his good friend Donald Rumsfeld. Oh, Donald, how you doing? Very good to see you again. And now Donald, he's going to introduce him to, oh, Tim, how you doing? How's your wife? Oh, yeah, she feeling good? Oh, good to hear that. And then they're going to introduce him to somebody else. You see, they're all good, wonderful friends. And so we're told that Saddam Hussein, of course, was a really bad guy, and nobody would doubt that because any head of a government, of course, would be a bad guy. We're told that he was a brutal dictator and that he had to go and they had to have democracy and freedom, and that the United States had to bring democracy to the people in Iraq. And so let's look, who said it? Yeah, George Bush said securing democracy in Iraq is the work of many hands. American and coalition forces are sacrificing for the peace of Iraq. See, so now the question is, how was this democracy brought about? Let's not forget what the definition of terrorism is. Remember, terrorism is the use or threatened use of force designed to bring about political change. So how did the Bush administration, the United States military, bring about this political change in Iraq? Well, let's take a look. I gotta say, it looks like force, doesn't it? I would think that shock and awe would be described as force. Oh, another explosion. So here you've got, and looking at it objectively, of course, as objectively as possible, you've got the United States military using force, shock and awe, to bring about political change. Well, terrorism is the use or threatened use of force designed to bring about political change. So, would the American military, the American government, be guilty of committing acts of terrorism in Iraq? That's the question. And the answer, if we look objectively, is very clear. Using force, like shock and awe as you see right now, to bring about political change is terrorism. And an act of terrorism doesn't stop being an act of terrorism because of the uniform or the flags involved. And another question is this: are the very people who keep going on and on about terrorism the very same people who are using force to bring about political change?
Terror.
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 War on terrorism. War against terrorism.
Global war on terror.
Global terrorism. 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 Global terrorism.
Terrorism. Terrorism.
Terrorism.
Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. Terrorism. The evil.